Hello everyone, today we are going to be taking a look at an extra special Blu-ray box set from the Criterion Collection, and that is Ingmar Bergman's Cinema. Welcome back everyone to another Blu-ray review. This is an extra special Blu-ray review for an extra special release. And this is from the Criterion Collection. This is the Ingmar Bergman's Cinema box set. This contains 39 films on 30 discs. One of their biggest and most comprehensive box sets they've ever released, certainly on Blu-ray, and this is just absolutely amazing that I thought I needed to make a video about it just so that people can get a glimpse of its majesty. As you can see here on the cover is a still photo from one of Ingmar Bergman's films of Persona. This box set has all of his main classic films: The Seventh Seal, Persona, Cries and Whispers, Wild Strawberries, Virgin Spring, all of those films, and I'm going to go into this entire box set in and out, so stay tuned for that. But first up here, let's get a closer look on the spine. As you can see here, it is a massively thick set, and it is really heavy. It's gonna be like a chore here to hold this up the whole time. And as you can see, the letters are arranged in a rather interesting way, a rather unique way that if you have some type of OCD is probably going to bother you. You'll also notice that the box set itself is not numbered, which is very interesting to me because they typically number their box sets. And what you see here on the other side is a glimpse of the contents. Here is a 248-page paperback softcover book, and on the other side here is the package in which all of the discs are contained. And on the back here is just a massive paper sheet here giving you a list of all of the movies, as well as a whole lot there to read when it comes to a lot of the details. Don't worry if you can't see them all now, but before we go into all of the details inside, I just want to touch upon Ingmar Bergman and his importance to cinema. For me, Ingmar Bergman is an amazing filmmaker. He is one of the legends of all time. His films are unlike anything I've ever seen, or anything maybe you have ever seen, and I used to believe that I knew a lot about movies. I watch a lot of movies, I study them, I talk about them, I read about them, and then I started to watch Bergman, and you'll realize that you don't really know anything when you start watching Bergman, because his films are just that unique. He was someone who was born in 1918 and died in 2007. He is a Swedish filmmaker, and his films deal with a lot of complex and interesting themes, specifically life and death and philosophy and theology, the study of religion and how it affects our lives and things like that. His films are really dense. It can be a bit of a chore for some people to get through, not only because of the themes he's going into, but also because of just the way his films are presented. It's a quintessential kind of very art house type of foreign language film. All of his films, I believe, are done in Swedish, so you're going to have to read subtitles, which of course I don't mind, but that may be a chore for some. But he is also someone who I think a lot of people have tried to emulate, and a lot of people have gotten a lot of inspiration from. What is also interesting about this box set is there are about 13 or 14 of his films that have been released individually on Blu-ray from the Criterion Collection. And of course, as someone who didn't envision this box set to ever be a possibility, decided that I was going to get pretty much all of those to add to the collection. So now I ended up rebuying a bunch of them, but this box set has so much more to offer, and let's take a look at what's inside. Hello everyone. We are back here taking a closer look at the Ingmar Bergman's Cinema Blu-ray box set from Criterion, and just as you can see here on the front, as you saw that I just pointed out, is that it has a still photo cover from his film Persona, but what you can't really tell is that this is a matte finish. This isn't a glossy finish, and I personally prefer matte finish when it comes to my box sets and covers and things like that, because with glossy covers, you usually get a lot of fingerprint problems. Also, I want to point out I'm shooting this segment with my phone, so please, I apologize for the shaky cam. Please ignore it as much as you possibly can. But moving here on the back, I wanted to give you all a much closer, more in-depth look at what all of this is. Back here is a rather thin sleeve that contains all of the details that are included in this set. It does come off, and there is a photo on the back. I really don't want to take it off or mess with it in any way because it is a rather thin sheet, and it could bend, it could tear very easily. On the left here is the blurb, which discusses the box set and the importance of Ingmar Bergman and his work. On the right here is also something very important, is a list of all of the films in chronological order. And the reason why that is very important is because the films are not laid out in chronological order within the set. They are laid out in curated order, and I'll get into all of that once we get inside of the set. On the left here is a list of most of the special features that are contained in this box set. First up here is a digital restoration of the films, including a new 4K restoration of The Seventh Seal and new 2K restorations of Crisis, Shame, Fanny and Alexander, and many others with uncompressed monaural and stereo soundtracks. 11 introductions by director Ingmar Bergman, 6 audio commentaries, over 5 hours of interviews with Bergman, interviews with Bergman's collaborators, including actors Bibi Andersson, Harriet Andersson, Ingrid Bergman, Erland Josephson, Gunnel Lindblom, Liv Ullmann, and Max von Sydow, and cinematographer Sven Nykvist. Daniel from 1967 and Karen's Face 1984, 2 rarely seen documentary shorts by Bergman, documentaries about the making of Autumn Sonata, Fanny and Alexander, The Magic Flute, The Serpent's Egg, The Touch, and Winter Light. Extensive programs about Bergman's life work, including Bergman Island, But Film Is My Mistress, Laterna Magica, Liv and Ingmar, and others. Behind-the-scenes footage, video essays, trailers, stills, galleries, and more, plus a lavishly illustrated 248-page book featuring essays on the films by critics, scholars, and authors including Peter Coe, Alexander Chee, Molly Haskell, Karen Mahahan, Fernando Solorzano, and many others, along with selections from remarks and text by Bergman himself. This is the cover of the 248-page book. As you can see, it's another still from one of Bergman's films. I'm not quite sure which one. And on the back here is a picture of Ingmar Bergman himself in his younger years, of course. But just flipping through the book a little bit, just to give you a hint of how thick and how heavy it is and just what it contains. And this is going to be very important because this is going to get into the whole curation of this box set. And curation, or something being curated, is kind of just a fancy term for being organized in a specific way, usually centered around some specific themes or things like that. You hear that word a lot when it comes to museums, when it comes to film festivals. And first up here is a table of contents. This table of contents lays out the way in which all of the films are placed in the set. First up here, you'll notice that it is broken up into sections. The first section is Opening Night, which contains Smiles of a Summer Night, Crisis and a Ship to India, Wild Strawberries, To Joy, and Summer Interlude. You'll see that once we take a look at the disc, that some discs contain 2 movies, which are meant to be watched as double features. Next up is Summer with Monica, and then last is Dreams and a Lesson in Love. And as you can also see here is the corresponding pages where you will find an essay by a specific author about a specific film, and there is one for every single one of these films. Next up here is Centerpiece 1, which has Scenes from a Marriage and Saraband, For the Life of Marionettes and Hour of the Wolf. Next is Shame and Passion of Anna, and then Faro Document and Faro Document 1979. And on the back page you have Through a Glass Darkly, Winter Light, and Silence. If you're not familiar with these films were contained in a DVD box set put out by Criterion. And there were many, many years where I had hoped that these would be released on Blu-ray, and they finally have. Next up is The Virgin Spring. And then, of course, we have Centerpiece number 2, which starts off with one of Bergman's most famous films, and that is The Seventh Seal. Next is The Devil's Eye and All These Women, Sawdust and Tinsel and The Right, The Magician, The Magic Flute and After the Rehearsal, The Touch, and The Serpent's Egg, which ends Centerpiece number 2. And then you have Centerpiece number 3, which starts out with, once again, one of Bergman's heavy hitters, and that is Persona. And next is Thirst and Port of Call, Cries and Whispers, Waiting Women and Brink of Love, and then ends with Autumn Sonata. And then the closing night, which is the final film, is Fanny and Alexander. And of course, there is both the theatrical cut and the television cut of the film. And just doing a quick flip through of this book, you can see that there are still photos of Bergman and things like that. You also have, of course, lots and lots of reading, lots and lots of essays, all kinds of things. I don't want to go through this in massive detail because this video will be very, very long. Massive detail, massive amounts of work went into this, and it is quite an astonishing book to behold. I can't stress enough how great it is to have as a resource to go along with all of the films that are in this box set. If you're not familiar, this box set was purposely released this year to commemorate the 100th anniversary of the birth of Ingmar Bergman. And next up here is, of course, what we've all been waiting for, and that is the discs and the way they are laid out. First up here on the cover is a still photo from, I believe, Seventh Seal. And on the back here is a collage. But first up, let's open this up, and as you can see, more photos. And here we have the first page of discs. And just taking a quick close look up here is you have disc number 1, which is Smiles of a Summer Night. But each disc is securely placed in a bit of a kind of indentation. Most people don't really like this type of packaging because the discs can get loose, they can fly out, they can rub up against things. But what you don't really notice here is that there is a little groove in which the discs kind of settle in. You do kind of have to dig the discs out with your hands, which can lead to fingerprinting and stuff like that, but Blu-rays are very resilient when it comes to fingerprinting and things like that. The second disc here is the first double feature, and that is Crisis and a Ship to India. And then next that we have up here is Wild Strawberries, and of course all the details that go with that. And then down here is another double feature, To Joy and Summer Interlude. And next up here we have disc number 5, which is Summer with Monica. What is amazing about this box set is that a lot of these films are getting to be released on Blu-ray for the first time from Criterion. Like I said, about a third of this box set has already been released individually by Criterion, and they are continuing to re-release a lot of these in single disc packaging and things like that if you want to buy them individually if you can't get your hands on this set. Winter Light, Silence, The Virgin Spring, The Seventh Seal. I kind of really like the way they curated this set. It's something different than you don't typically see with box sets. They usually just put them in, order in which the films were released in. But this set took the time to release them in an interesting order because I feel with big time directors like Bergman, whose work is so unique and so interesting that you really can't dive in headfirst into Bergman or else you're kind of going to drown. You really need to ease yourself into it, and I really feel that this set eases you into it. By the time you get to, centerpiece number 1, you're really kind of fully inundated with all of the things and all of the style that Bergman has to show us. And of course, we have disc 29 here, which is the making of Fanny and Alexander, and then disc 30, which is additional supplements. On the back here is an index of all of the films and which disc that they are contained on. And on the final panel here, just another gorgeous picture from one of Ingmar Bergman's films. So this has been my review of the Ingmar Bergman Cinema Blu-ray set from Criterion. If you like this video, please check out the other videos on my channel.